Welcome to At Home Is Now. I'm Monica Oberhuber and I'm your host. My guest today is Nathan Baws. Welcome.
Thanks, Monica. Nice to be here.
So I like to start by asking you what you are most excited about at present and how it contributes to your joy and happiness.
I guess, Monica, what I'm most excited about is what I do all day, every day, and it's actually run businesses. I'm involved in a bunch of different businesses, and I spend 7 days a week doing it, and I really enjoy the journey. And I find it very fulfilling. I love the idea of helping people solve their problems and getting commercially rewarded for it, and everyone wins as a result. So yeah, that's what I spend most of my time doing, and love the process.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting because it's also building your own business while doing it. So you're also becoming very creative. So I think maybe you'd like to share how you came to being so creative in helping others and building your own ideas as well.
But I find actually you're spot on there. The creative side of business is the bit that I really love. The fact is that you can create whatever you want, whatever you can dream up is pretty cool, and you can put it into place and you can make it happen. So we're not dictated by guidelines when it comes to creating businesses and building businesses and helping people with their problems, and getting rewarded for it. So it's a very much a creative process. I've been involved in about 19 different businesses now across a very broad range of things, from health shops. Originally started as a naturopath, and I built 3 health shops and a vitamin supplement range that are sold across Australia. Background as a naturopath, so then went into property in the UK and restaurants in Australia, and we do retail in food manufacturing here in Perth, and bookkeeping with business growth, and we run setting up some weight loss programs in Bali. So a bunch of different things over the time, and I find it just absolutely fascinating that you can create something that's really good, that solves a lot of problems, that brings a lot of value, and have a lot of fun doing it in that creative space of what can we dream up next that is of value to people.
I think that's a very important point, that whatever you can dream up can be realized. I think that was a point you made, and I think that's really important. And I'd love to hear more about that, because this idea empowers people to go after their dreams, right? To go after their ideas, to build on them, to become creative, and that it's also probably the reason why you're able to help, because you have that view of it, that idea
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, and the passion is really important. I mean, so many people go through life with that tunnel vision of next one day after the other and just following the footpath, whereas I find that incredibly boring, and I find it a lot more interesting to live life with passion and find things that we're actually passionate about, because the more time we put into doing those passion-driven projects, then the more fulfillment we'll get, and the more we'll stick to it if there's a good vision at the end of it, a bigger picture there, then it's very fulfilling, very motivating, very much momentum driven. And I actually do a lot of talking about utilizing dopamine to as a very much uplifting endorphin to stimulate naturally in the body through healthy natural processes, to utilize that in business and hook into that passion and use it as a biohacking, where we can have impact on our biochemistry of our body to improve our well-being for our health and for our mindset and for our business. So in my mind, there's a big direct connection between the biochemistry of our body and how we can regulate and modulate that to get better outcomes. When we stimulate more dopamine in our brain, then we have this beautiful reward process that the body, endorphins are created to overcome discomfort, but also to bring a level of pleasure and reward. And so it positively creates a snowball effect where you do something positive for your body and you get rewarded. And when we have more of this in our body and we can artificially stimulate this in natural, healthy ways, then our awareness is greater, our ability to attract good situations into our life is better. We can see opportunities a lot more effectively. So in the business world, that's a fantastic thing. So there's a lot of things that I like to do to focus on to bring those positive endorphins into the body to use them in business. So it's a good thing to do.
So maybe you'd like to explain what methods or what ideas you have about that, so that how one can do that.
Yeah. So there's healthy ways of stimulating dopamine and there's unhealthy ways of stimulating it. So to start with the unhealthy ones, these are the ones we want to avoid. It's stimulants in our life, whether they're through caffeine or sugar hits through our diet, or drugs, recreational drugs, or they say there's a big connection with doom scrolling and too much social media use. All these things give us a quick hit of dopamine, and what goes up must come down. The more healthy, effective ways for stimulating long-term dopamine, there's a bunch of different things, like keeping your carbohydrates quite low in your diet, keeping your sugar intake really low. In Australia, on average, we're eating about 14 teaspoons of sugar every day. Now, that's not so good. It's not very good for our health, and it's not very good for our dopamine production, and it's not very good for so many different things. High sugar intake is associated with diabetes and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and heart disease. And it's definitely no good for business because it just creates brain fog. And we're going for these quick hits of sugar, gives us a quick little high, gives us that dopamine hit, but it crashes us down afterwards. So I like to look at things like ketosis and utilizing the balancing of the blood sugar levels to stabilize that, to keep the sugar intake quite low, so that we can go into almost like a fasting state biochemically, where our body switches over to a healthier set of fuels. So instead of burning glucose, it goes into burning fat tissue. And when we break down fat, we release ketones into the body, which also has a really good impact on dopamine, and it's very good for brain function and a whole bunch of other things. Satiety, you don't feel hungry. So in Australia, with the 14 teaspoons of sugar, if we went across to America, we're looking at about 34 teaspoons of sugar consumed by an average person every day of the year, which is just insane, So you can have it so many times a day. Before even lunch, you've likely consumed it 4 or 5 times in breakfast cereals, and it's put in bread, and it's put in obviously cakes and biscuits and all sorts of food and sauces. So it's just so prolific. So with all this sugar, we've got to start looking at ways of cutting it back, and these can actually have a really good impact. By dropping that, we can have more sustainable energy, the ability to create more dopamine in the body for longer term. That's one way to stimulate dopamine. Another one that I participate in every day is cold water therapy. I was actually involved in a Guinness Book of World Records for ice baths, but it was related the only reason I do anything in life is business related. I'm very fascinated by business. I'm very focused on it. And so anything that I do with health is fantastic for health, but also I kind of see it as, okay, that's going to help me improve my day. It's going to help me improve my concentration and my energy so I can participate more in business, get more done, and be more focused on the job. So ice baths are very useful, and I go down to the beach every morning and jump in the cold ocean, regardless of the weather. And it's very, very effective for stimulating more dopamine. Dopamine levels go up by something like 234%, which is massive. It's bigger than a lot of recreational drugs, the hit that it gives you, and it's free. And so that's another really useful thing to do. You don't have to jump in the ocean or an ice bath every day, but you can have a cold shower. And the problem with cold water therapy is it's very uncomfortable, and a lot of people won't move out of their comfort zone. We're very content in this world, living in our comfort zone. But the other side of discomfort is, I always think it's related to success and achievement. So we have to put ourselves in these states if we want to move forwards. And so starting your day with a cold therapy, a bit of cold therapy, a bit of cold shower or ice bath or beach swim, really good to get your motor running for the day and stimulate that dopamine and just put you in a really lovely state of energy and awareness and dopamine and attracting good things into your world. So they're probably two of the main sort of strategies I use on a daily basis to fire up those dopamine reserves. And there's other ones as well, but I'll give you a little sample.
Another one would be, of course, the way you see the world, right? The way you look at things, the way you approach life.
100%. Yeah.
Of how you can support contentment and happiness and certainty and trust and all the things that we need in order to get things done, right? And to have a great life. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's something we always should be working on every day. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Well, let's look into, so you said you started as a naturopath. So what was that about remedies or healing modalities, or what were you into at that time?
Yeah, that covered a broad spectrum of health-related focus. So we did nutrition within the diet. We did vitamin mineral therapy, herbal medicine, homeopathics. What I found really fascinating was the biochemistry side of it. It was really interesting of how the body does everything. And I did that I studied for 3 years and then put it in that industry. I was probably for about 15 years all up, and worked for someone else in that industry for a while, for about 7 or 8 years, and then after learning as much as I could under someone else's guidance, so opened up health shops and vitamin range after that and went into that. So that was a very rewarding industry to be in, helping people and the thing I found a little bit frustrating, I would say, is that repeating the same thing over and over again, and people would come for advice, and the problem is executing on that advice. A lot of people don't want to change habits. They want the end result, but they don't want to change the habits. And I guess I wasn't really as focused on how to create sustainable dietary and habit changes as I am now. So it was a challenge getting people to be motivated to continue whatever changes they need to do to make an impact on their health. Right, it was good part of a good period of my life. Nonetheless, lots of lessons learned.
So what you're saying, you now have come to be able to support people in changing their habits for longer periods or for indefinitely if they want to, right?
Yeah, the psychology and using a lot of NLP, actually, neuro-linguistic programming. The likes of Anthony Robbins. I was involved in a book with him, and spoke about business growth and dopamine, how to stimulate dopamine naturally. And I wrote a chapter with him, but he's fantastic at that neuro-linguistic programming. And it's very, very useful. We use it in the weight loss programs, because obviously learning to lose weight loss is good and quick and effective when you do it properly, particularly in the keto world. It has amazing results. You can lose very easily 2 kilos a week. And that's really important for people who are losing weight to see results quickly. However, because that will obviously stimulate more momentum and motivation to carry it through. Because if you're slogging away at something and going through a lot of pain and discomfort, changing habits, then and not getting results, then it's obviously pretty disheartening and very hard to continue that long term. So yeah, you're right. So when it comes to making change and implementing it, something that I really wasn't as focused on back in the day, when I was consulting, it was more around do this, this, and this, go away and make it happen. Whereas now it's do this, this, and this, but implement system A, B, and C, and let's look at some long-term effectiveness. So when we're losing weight, we don't want to just shed the kilos now and next month go through the cycle again and binge eat and be back to square one. We want to train the body to utilize new and effective habits that are long-lasting and easily implementable, and that are anchored to some really solid foundations, so that they don't go off the rails when there's a hens party or there's something that changes their regular flow. But instead we can be anchored to a sustainable long-term outcome, which is obviously pretty important in these sort of situations.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges in sustaining something is that when you've learned it, then you go back to the lifestyle you had before, to the environment you were in before, and then you have to deal with all the expectations that you have and other people have on you, right, for that environment. And so changing things, you need to deal with that if you want to change things consistently. You need to find a way to move through that.
For sure. Yeah. And it is about creating the right environment and setting yourself up with better odds for success. I mean, on a very basic level, when we're talking with weight loss, it's things like just put all the crap out of the room, out of the house, make it a little bit harder for yourself, set up an environment that is conducive to long-term success. In the hotel rooms, when guests come in, if they're doing a weight loss program in a standard hotel that specializes in weight loss, but they'll have that same hotel will have guests that come in for recreational activities and also guests that come in for the program. But obviously we want to ensure we don't have all the usual rubbish that a hotel room would have, like the chocolates and the cans of cool drink in the fridge and easy access. Part of it, out of sight, out of mind, is really, really important. If we focus, whatever we focus on and is in our awareness, we're obviously going to participate in a lot easier. So if we have those things outside of our reach, outside of our conscious mindset, then that's 50% of the battle right there. So, that's half the battle won by just some simple basic strategies for long-term success.
Yeah, but you need to continue, because during a retreat or a seminar or whatever you're doing in the hotel, you have all the the support mechanisms and all the environmental mechanisms set up for you. But at home, you don't have that, right? In your workplace, in your home, in your friends circles and so on, right? So you need to be, most likely you need to do something there too, otherwise it won't last.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to set it up everywhere. You know, wherever you're going to be, whatever space you're going to be in, you want to make sure it's conducive to your success, stacked in your favor. We don't want to be pushing garbage uphill with a rubber fork, do we? We want to make it easy for ourselves and set it up for success. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go into the process of supporting businesses, because I think that's also very dear to your heart, as far as I heard. So how do you go about that? Do people approach you, or do you see that someone has a great idea and they're struggling, and then you say, if you want, I'm available, and I have these and these processes, or whatever. I don't know how you go about your marketing and how you actually get these companies and people to engage in the process and enjoy it with you, and then have success. Hopefully, at least.
Hopefully, that's always the plan. Absolutely. But we do a lot of joint ventures. So I use a lot of what I'm involved in to work with other people in particular. So let's say that Tommy Sugo is one of my brands here in Perth, where we manufacture Italian food. So that can be used. You know, we find ways of using that in a win-win-win scenario. So with joint ventures, it's something that's very that I love to do. You know, create different joint ventures with different partners, and you're always targeting a 3-win outcome. So you want obviously a win for our business. We want to have some sort of a reward for our business. Then we partner with the business, so obviously we want them to win in a way, and then we'll usually partner with that business so that we would offer their business or their customers a certain outcome or a certain product or deal or package. So they need to win. So a win-win-win outcome is really, really important for joint ventures, and we do a lot of that with customers and partners, joint venture partners. So we'll create structures. For example, as I was about to say, Tommy Sugo, we manufacture all Italian food. So what we do a lot of home delivery for that of our meals, and we reach out to schools, clubs, and charities, and we'll say, hey guys, if you want to do some fundraising, we've got a very good vehicle that supports fundraising. So they basically utilize one of our order forms. They share that with their network, their customers, their school students, whoever it is, and then they order through that link, and as a result they get a percentage of all the sales. And it's very easy to implement, very hands-off. They don't have to do much work, so it's a win for them. The school gets a cut of the sales, and the end customer gets a really good product, and they're supporting the school or the club or the charity. So they're feeling like they're involved in that process. And obviously we get visibility in a big database of people being at school, and we get sales out of it. We share the commissions, so that's fine. We take a smaller cut, but it's fantastic because everyone wins. So those sort of structures, in answer to your question of how do we get out there and help businesses, those are the sort of ways that we look at helping businesses. If we can work with a business and we can help them generally businesses are in business to make money, to be financially rewarded. Otherwise, a business doesn't last too long if it isn't doing that, and can't help too many people if it's not making a profit. It's more of a charity, and even with that concept, it's not very scalable. You know, businesses, and to help anyone in this world, it has to be commercially viable to do it. Otherwise, the level of help we can give is going to be so much smaller, and the impact we can have on the world is so less considerable than if we all win and we all grow together and we're financially rewarded for what we do. So yeah, that's why I love joint ventures. They're fantastic. Everyone wins. They don't have to cost money, and it's a fantastic way of growing an outcome, growing a business, selling a product or a service so much quicker than you would through paid or organic marketing. So I'm a big advocate of recruiting businesses and working hand in hand. So that's in the food industry. In other businesses, like in our bookkeeping business called Numberfied, we do bookkeeping at really cost-effective rates, but also we layer into it business growth coaching as well. So when people get bookkeeping done, they also get a kick up the backside by us to get them to, be to achieve the outcomes that they want to achieve. And even that, we partner with lots of businesses, so they help sell it. We give them commissions. Everyone wins. The end client wins. So joint ventures are just absolutely awesome for helping everyone and everyone benefiting. Big fan of it.
Okay, and you mentioned coaching. In what way do you coach people to be successful in their businesses?
Mainly by giving them a bit of a kick up the backside in a nicest, loving possible manner. So holding people to be accountable. We have a little group. We meet once a month, and we help. It's a free group, and we love helping people grow businesses and taking accountability and being accountable. We show up, and if anyone has any problems with growth, growth is a big focus for us. We love to grow businesses and have more of an impact on the world. And so people bring their biggest challenges or hurdles along, and we can give them suggestions, and we all contribute as a group and sort of help raise the bar a bit. And so that's the sort of coaching we do. I don't get involved in paid coaching. I'll often do joint ventures with other businesses and then share some direction along the way. And so that's sort of how we coach.
It sounds like you have a win-win-win again, because you are gaining knowledge too through these groups, right? For
Yeah,
your
always.
business, because they might have ideas that you never came up with that you can implement.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Everyone has similar sort of challenges, whether it's how do we get more customers, or how do we sort out automation, or whatever it is. A lot of things work really well when they're taken from one industry and applied in another industry. So it can work. Everyone wins, as you say. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of that and read about it. This benchmarking and using this different industries helping each other out to grow, because they have strategies that can be applied in the other industry as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
a fresh set of ideas can often come from a completely different industry. So,
yeah. So let's get back to the creativity. You mentioned how you don't want to do the same thing all the time. So how are you implementing that idea in your life that you can have this freshness every day that you so desire and love, right?
I get a lot of variety out of the different businesses that I deal with, but whatever is repeatable and process driven and cyclic, when you're doing the same things over and over again, it does become pretty boring. So wherever we can, we automate and delegate or eliminate. So they're the three things that we try and do, not necessarily in that order, but eliminate probably first. If it's unnecessary to repeat the task, it's better to get rid of it. And then if we can automate it, that's the second thing that we focus on is, automation of processes, systems, procedures. In Numberfied as a business that is around bookkeeping and business growth, creating one of the things that I find really, really exciting is creating SOPs, standard operating procedures for our clients, so that we always say, look, if for any reason you don't like the smell of our aftershave and you don't want to hang out with us for long term, we're going to build you the most amazing SOP, so that for your bookkeeping, you will have what to do, what needs to be done daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, everything in a process-driven structure, so that if you change bookkeepers any time down the track, you've got an amazing manual that you don't have to go through that crazy hard learning curve for the next person coming in. It's just, here you go, you take over this, and this system will just make things run, and there's no hardship. It's a very easy, smooth transition. So automation and standard systems operating procedures are fantastic for that side of thing. And then if we can't automate, if there's things that we're doing on a daily basis that I'm not in love with, then we've got to delegate that as quickly as possible. I don't want to be doing things that aren't in my wheelhouse and that take away the dopamine, that strip us of excitement, because chances are there's someone else out there that absolutely loves doing what you don't love doing. So how do we find someone to do it at a reasonable price if you're in business and you're trying to cover costs? And how can we do that? Can we automate it, or can we outsource it? Can it be done overseas at a better, more cost-effective price? Is there someone local that would like to do it as a training and get into the industry? There's always creative strategies for outsourcing processes and tasks that you're not in love with, so that it can free your time up, so that you spend it on uplifting things and dopamine creating things that create a beautiful, exciting snowball effect in a positive manner to skyrocket your passions and live your passions, rather than living through the mundane crap that takes up your time and sucks your energy. We don't want to be in that space.
And I think that's a very crucial part of it all. And I think that's also something you might be able to go deeper into. Yes, you need to, first of all, you need to have the outlook that there's people who will enjoy doing it, because you don't want to burden something with something that you don't like, and then say they're going to be going through the same hell you went through, or the same unpleasantness. So yeah, that is an important factor. So you need to, first of all, know that there are people who enjoy that, right?
Yeah.
And you have to find someone who does, then you need to figure out if they're trustworthy, and so on and so forth, all these questions. So maybe you could expand on that. I think that's an important factor, because it's, for many, it's hard to believe that a job could, or a workplace, or the way you live your life could be lived that way, that you can free yourself up to do what you actually love doing. Because many people think, okay, that's not enough, right? To do what you love, you need to do all the tedious chores as well, right? In order to have success. And I think your idea of success sounds different than that. So I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, well, as I say, if you're doing that soul-destroying work that you don't like doing, for me, it was bookkeeping. That's why I built a bookkeeping business. It was something that I absolutely hated doing. I wasn't passionate about it. But so I thought, well, how can I do this? And funny enough, with that business, I was hunting around for a really good accountant for a business a couple of years ago. And I actually called 21 accountants, and I sat down and called 21 across Australia. And I was looking for someone with a bit of passion and a bit of interest in business growth. And every single one of those 21 accountants gave me exactly the same pitch. It was, we can improve your compliance. We're very compliance driven, and you should choose us because we've been doing this 125 years or whatever it was, right? But it was all pretty much boring standard stuff. And all these guys were thinking these were good reasons to choose them over someone else. They completely lacked the whole passion thing, that I'm actually interested in helping you grow your business. If one of them had said that, it would have been, oh, hello, I'm, what was your name? Sorry, I fell asleep at the phone. But not one of them came through with that. So the side of the passion is so important. So for me, I created that business because I didn't like doing bookkeeping. I wasn't good at it. I found it sucked my energy and it took me away from doing stuff that I was good at and I was passionate about. Because the chances are, if you're really passionate about something, you're probably going to be good at it. It's very rare that you are passionate about something and actually suck at it. So generally, that's the basic direction to head into. What you really enjoy talking about or doing, then and if it's in business or in a job, whatever it is, that's where you really want to show your boss that you're excelling in, or in your business, you want to focus your time doing that stuff, because chances are you'll do it really successfully, and the customer or the boss or whoever it is will be a lot more happy with the outcome that you're going to generate there. So that's why I built Numberfied, because I didn't like doing that stuff, but I found someone that did. So I partnered up with a team and built a team around me that were really good at bookkeeping, that love it, that could talk about it all day, every day, and that I could have them do all my bookkeeping, plus help other people do all their bookkeeping and love it. Because again, there's just not enough passion in this world. It's so bland and it's so dry, and you just have to go to the supermarket and you get that taste of people don't even look you in the eye at the checkout. Actually, there's probably not really anyone left at the checkout. It's all automated now. But the reality is they don't want to be there. They're not passionate about it. Every now and again, you find someone that is, and it's like, well, where did you come from? And you want to deal with that person because they have a bit of a spark in life. And so it's so important to find that and live your maximum life, live your best life, because you enjoy what you're doing, and you'll make money out of it, or you'll be successful, or you'll please more people, and you get a good following when there's a bit of passion and a bit of spark. So important to find that, make that a priority.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point also when you delegate, that you chose to search out and take the time to find people who are passionate about it and love it. Because it's so easy just because I don't like it. There's no, so many times people say, okay, since you don't like it, that no one else will like it, right? And this idea is in many, I've encountered it so often. If you don't like it, everyone else won't like it. So do it, right? And that's then you get sucked into doing what you don't like and doing it more and more. And then, like you said, your spark starts to disappear, right? And so then you lose your passion. You can't do what you're passionate about anymore because you're so sucked into the stuff you don't like. So yes, I love that you made a point in finding someone and taking the time to finding people who loved it.
Yeah.
Rather than just hiring someone who will do it for the money, right? Or for
100%.
For something else, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like employees. You hire based on attitude, not skill set. And the skill set can always come. That's an easier part of the equation. But attitude, you either have it or you don't. You're either passionate or you're not. And it's so much easier working with passionate people. It's so much more pleasurable to have a conversation with someone that fills your cup up, that gets you going, that's equally motivated. And I always try and do that with joint venture partners. That's a really big part of it, is who can we bounce off? I want to spend every waking moment in that state of happiness and enjoyment, not doing stuff that is absolute pain and a bore. So it's really important to start asking the questions in your life of how can I stack this in my favor, and how can I do whatever I want to do? How can I do A, B, C? How can I achieve it? Because it's so much more essential to start the wiring of the brain so that it will give you the solutions. But if we don't ask the questions in the first place, it's like using AI and just sitting there waiting for it to get the answers when you haven't put in a prompt. So it all starts with a decent question, and then the answers flow thereafter.
Yeah, another thing I've observed a lot is that many company attitudes are, like I was saying, you have to do the unpleasant with the pleasant. Or if someone's passionate about that and they think they don't search a way to use that passion, but might actually start blocking it, right, in many ways. And then they lose the passion of their employees, right? And then the whole company has a drawback from that.
So true.
It's really sad. So I think that this makes a huge difference, because even when there's a job which originally had all kinds of things attached to it, right? You have to do all of that. But a boss could also see that he delegates the things that one person is not passionate about to someone who's more passionate about it, right? Instead of saying, I have to stay with that job definition and that person has to fulfill all the requirements of the job. Because if they're passionate, I think you were saying that, if they're passionate, they'll come up with so many rewarding things that they can add to the job that you wouldn't even have thought of if you were stuck on this job description.
Yeah. If you're going through it gritting your teeth, there's no way you're going to be constructive towards it. And it's really interesting that when there's a lack of passion, the culture of a whole business can become quite a nightmare. I was, to give you an example of this, I had a crazy experience 2 weeks ago. I was catching a flight from Sydney to Perth, and didn't realize at the time, but the airline that I traveled with had really, really interesting culture. Let's just put it that way. And the whole team just didn't want to be there. And they were all incredibly aggressive. And funny enough, because I'm so passionate about passion and good customer service, and because these guys were the complete opposite of that, I actually got kicked off the plane. They actually removed me from the plane. Unbelievable. Never expected that in my wildest dreams. And it's really interesting because we were completely, my sister and I, we objected to the way we were handled. And also this elderly lady, she asked for some assistance from the air hostess to put a bag in the overhead locker. And the air hostess just walked past and said, no, we don't get involved in customer baggage. And I was like, what? This is like everything that runs against my grain, particularly an elderly lady there. So I jumped up straight away and grabbed the bag and stuck it in the overhead locker. And I said to the flight assistant, I said, that is another example of your customer service. You guys got to improve this. And didn't like it. I wasn't aggressive. We didn't swear. There was no voices raised. And we got thrown off the plane. Unbelievable. So to me, that's a fantastic example of how culture and passion and customer service can all spiral downwards so quickly, and the aggressive nature that it's handled. Whereas if there was someone with a bit more passion and a little bit more care and a little bit of customer-centric focus, then they would have said, what's the issue? How can we serve you better? Instead of how can we cover it up and kick you off the plane because it goes against our culture. Our culture is that aggressive sort of, we don't want to hear about the complaints. So yeah, I just think we have to be very careful, and it hasn't been demonstrated so clearly to me, but the passion and the the care factor and the love that you show can so much affect the culture and then just degenerate very, very rapidly into a very toxic environment if you're not careful. So yeah, I think we have to be very careful of these sort of things.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happens when you're not allowing people within the company or in the group to do things they're passionate about and contribute in that way, that it can get very, very toxic. And then there's all this suspicion, this being jealous, blaming, and all these things start coming up.
Yep.
And of course, that will, if you have customers, it will go directly to the customers as well, right? If you're serving people, which usually you are, you'll have those issues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's quite amazing, and it's really interesting because that was an Australian airline. I won't go into the details of who it was, but then we went on. We got kicked off, and so we went on to this other aeroplane, booked another flight, and the difference in the culture and obviously from a high level, from the CEO downwards, it was so evident that this other plane, and I'll tell you, they were Virgin, the good ones were Virgin Airlines, and it was so good. It was such a pleasure to be around. And I've told this story to hundreds of people, since 2 weeks ago, just because it just demonstrates to me, the wrong people are offering in customer service, and also the culture of the side of things, whether their focus is on processes and procedures, not the human element. And the difference between amazing culture and people who have passion. I went to Virgin, they're all smiling and they're all happy, and it was chalk and cheese. It was just so obvious. And I hadn't realized how different businesses in exactly the same thing, giving the same apparent offering, can vary so much, so massively different in the culture, in the passion, in the love. And you could see everyone in Virgin would just, they were just loving being there. And I just thought, wow, that's really, that ethics and that culture must really stem from the top down, and just be throughout the whole business. So it was so lovely to see.
Yeah, another thing is rewarding ideas, right? People's ideas, instead of stifling them, right? Saying, "Oh no, that's impossible. That's impossible. That's impossible." Right. So you were also mentioning that before, that you are convinced that any idea you might come up with can be implemented and found a way to make it profitable as well, right? For all sides.
Sure. If there's enough passion there, I guess not everything works, but it's always worth testing and testing the theory and working through it to see if it does, and using past experiences. And we've had a fair few challenges and a fair few things go the wrong way in the past in different businesses. So you get a bit of a gut feel and you learn from that, and then you can apply that to new ideas to see how easily and quickly they should be implemented, if they should be, or based on past experience, where are the pitfalls that you'd have to be aware of. But also giving that feedback to people who bring those ideas is really lovely, because we never want to be brick walling people. We don't ever want to be that hurdle that people have to jump over if they're trying to help and contribute and be in that zone of passion, because it'll put them off, and it stops their growth, and it stops the business growth as well. So you want to explore it. You want to, like, I'll always give feedback and say, awesome idea. I'll tell you what, the challenges that I see with that, based on my past experience, is A, B, C. How would we overcome based on those challenges? How would we then overcome and implement based on that? So means you can move forward with an idea, but you also have to be grounded in the fact that there could be challenges with that idea, and giving that feedback in a nice way is really important.
Yeah, and when ideas come through, it's not always about implementing every one of them, right? It's about getting that flow to happen so that ideas get put out there, because you never know what it will be useful for, right? Like you were saying, one company in a different area of expertise has a thing that's working for them, and then you might find out it works for you in a different context with some tweaks or changes. It works fantastic. That can only happen if you're open to a variety and a diversity of ideas, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got to be open to it, but also grounded in reality as well. So it's a balance. Yeah.
Because what I'm wondering, how do you deal with when fears come up? Because some companies have this environment where fear is very prevalent, right? Where they say you have to do this, you have to do that. If you don't, this and that will happen, right? Or whatever. They like to use pressure to get things done. And I think if you're a passion driven company, you need to do that differently. So what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, there's carrot and the stick. Sweeten the deal with a carrot, or if they're not performing, hit them with a stick. That's the old way of doing things. But the motivation can be very fear driven, as you say. There's repercussions for doing things that are against company policy. But I feel, and that was really interesting to see this play out in the airline that we're involved in. It was clear that there was carrot and stick sort of behavior with that. And I think the other airline took it from a more, and I'm just using these as recent examples of what we're talking about. And the other airline took it from a more of a, clearly there was more engagement and more passion within the team. And it was about avoiding things that were points of friction. The Virgin airline was clearly all about, let's eliminate any of those things that cause the negativity to come up in the process. And people were engaged and I think empowered on a more micro level, so that staff could deal with situations and keep customers happy instead of relying on, sorry, this is policy, deal with it. That's it. There's the more human personal interactions where people are passionate, they're engaged in their work, they're solution oriented rather than procedural driven. And that's a huge difference.
Yeah, that certainly is. So another question, is there any point in your life at which these ideas became apparent to you? Because some people grew up with that, right? Like maybe you were one of them, or at some point in their life, they might have had some insight or some experience that changed their outlook so that they could follow a passion-driven life instead of the life they may have been leading before that.
I think for me, it just came about from the fact that there were certain things I didn't enjoy doing. And as I worked it out, as I went along in the business world, things like the bookkeeping, I really don't enjoy doing it. And every time tax time came around, it was just a huge pain in the backside. So it's like, I don't want to be doing this. How do I ask the right question so that I can get the right answer? How can I do it so that I never have to touch my accounts again? Surely there's someone out there that absolutely is in love with the process that I really don't enjoy. So it's really a question about, how do I create the ultimate life? And I haven't got there yet by any stretch of the imagination, but I constantly work towards moving in that direction. What is the ultimate life for me? What does that look like? Well, it certainly looks like eliminating tasks that don't float my boat. It certainly looks like focusing 80-90% of my day on stuff that I really, really love doing. And funny enough, that's mainly lead generation. I'm super passionate about lead generation and new growth coming into a business. So that's where I spend a good chunk of my day is focusing on stuff that grows businesses and grows my business. So yeah, I think that's how I came across those things. It was just through creating a life that I wanted to love and live and be passionate about, and avoiding all the crap that doesn't float my boat. Very simple.
Okay, so it was not one specific turning point or anything, but it was something that you discovered that there were things you were passionate about and things that you were not passionate about, and deciding you're going to do something to be able to do more of what you're passionate about. Am I getting that right? Yeah.
Spot on. Yeah. No.
Okay. See, there's so much in what we just spoke about that I think is another. Yeah. What I think one of the topics that's very important for everyone is also developing trust in one's own abilities or in the capability of making such choices, being able to do that, because that's not everyone is aware that they could make those changes and do it in a way that wouldn't harm them, right? Many people are afraid if they choose to follow their passion that they will lose out in instability or insecurity or in whatever else, right? So this decision to follow that, and also, like you said, groundedness, but not a groundedness that keeps you stuck. It has to be a different type of groundedness, because many people think that it's grounded to say, no, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this will be too difficult, blah, blah, blah. But then they never get off the ground, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of head space stopping people from moving ahead. I guess it comes down to where your motivation is at. We were brought up on a lot of potatoes at a young age because that was the cheapest thing in the supermarket to fill the bellies. And so when you come from that sort of a starting point, then there's always a bit more motivation to make sure you find solutions better, and you never want to end up back in that same potato shop, so to speak. So yeah, I think the pursuit of good outcomes is pretty high on my agenda. Yeah.
Okay, then we're slowly getting to the point where we'll start wrapping up. So is there any question I didn't ask that you want to answer anyways?
Oh, any questions? I think we covered a bit of ground tonight, or today, your time, whatever it is. But no, yeah, unless there's anything else specific, happy to chat about. But I think we've got a good package there.
Okay, then thank you so much, Nathan, for joining me here and speaking
Pleasure.
about passion, which is a topic in any area of life, whether it's a spiritual topic, it's a business topic, it's a lifestyle topic, it's a health topic, because I think passion plays into all areas of life. And so it's a very, very important topic. And yeah, and how to go about that. That's step-by-step process of going about that is really, really important. And I think you described some of the very important aspects, like throwing out what isn't fun, but finding a way that it is fun for someone else, right? Or getting rid of it completely if it's unnecessary, right? And automation, I think, was also very important. The idea that things that are repetitive, that you can automate them, right? And you don't have to touch them so much anymore, or not at all, depending on what automation system you're using, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yep. Well said.
Okay, then thank you, all of you who are viewing this, listening to it. Please let people know about this podcast, review it, subscribe so that more people find it. And if you want to be a guest, please reach out to me and we'll find a way to do that. And blessings to you all. Until next time.
Thank you.